Hey everybody, I'm Maddie and welcome back to Diaries of a Farmhouse. If you have been here before, if you have not been here before, welcome. We're gonna do another beauty and botany video today, and I have a little bit of wine, so if you have wine, grab your wine, come sit down with me. We're gonna do makeup, we're gonna talk about this plant today, and also, if you don't have wine or you cannot drink wine, if you're underage or whatever, you could grab a soda, grab some water, grab whatever you want. So, I am really quick going to talk about the wine that I'm drinking today. So this is the One Hope rosé wine. I think I did Chardonnay last time. Really good, not super sweet, but not super dry either. Kind of in the middle, perfect. For every bottle that you buy or is bought, a portion of that purchase goes to a different charity each month. They also offer a lot of discounts. If you buy in bulk, you get a discount. You can also message me and create an event to raise money for a charity of your choice, a nonprofit. And so if you're having a party, if you're buying wine for a birthday, Christmas, whatever, your event planner, when you want to buy wine for your event, you can message me. We will set up an event for your event. And then you can choose a nonprofit to share that portion of money with. So, anyway, I'm going to pour my glass of this really quick. I have filmed this video once already, but I did not like how the makeup turned out. So, we're talking about Syngoniums today. So, let me grab my inspiration. Okay, so you can see I have the pink and green on today. We're talking about Syngoniums, just kind of in general, not specific ones. If you want me to talk about specific ones, I will. Just leave it in the comments below. But today, we're talking about kind of all of them in general. So we're going to talk about a history. We're going to talk about care. I found a lot of like old history on these, but I could not find like with Monsteras, I could kind of find when they became popular in the houseplant community. I could not find that for this. But I'll tell you what I know. I'll tell you how to care for them. I have this pink Syngonium that was kind of my inspiration for today, which is why I have the pink and green on. So, we're going to try to do that. Okay, so obviously we know we're talking about Syngoniums today. If you've never seen one before or heard them called that name, they are often called an arrowhead plant. And that is because of their arrowhead shape. So arrowhead plants or Syngoniums are sometimes called goose feet, I saw. They produce leaves that are, as you can see on the one that I showed you, they have this really nice arrowhead kind of heart leaf shape. More arrowhead, I guess. But as they grow to maturity, ooh, that scared me. There's a lash stuck to my hand. As they grow to maturity, this changes, and the leaf starts to get more splits in it, I guess. It kind of divides off. They call it compound, but they split off into different parts. I'll show you one that I have in my collection. But that is also why they're called goose feet, because they kind of spread out and still maintain a little bit of the arrowhead shape, but they kind of spread out and pinch off into different sections. So that is just something to consider. Some common names that these are known by. So let's go ahead and get into when they were first discovered and when they were first discovered and what they were first thought to be. Like I said, I couldn't find like when they became popular as a houseplant. So I guess Monsteras were lucky in the fact that someone who was well known and kind of famous decided to put them in their home, and then that kind of helped them to gain traction as a houseplant. But I couldn't find anything like that on arrowhead plants. I know that they have been really popular for a very long time. The one that I have in my house, one of my older ones, came from my mom, and I don't know exactly how old it is, but she has had it probably since I was born, so 20 years-ish. But I'm not sure when they really gained traction. I know they're very popular now. So we know that right now they're pretty popular, more so the more kind of like trending and kind of rare versions of the Syngonium plant, or I think it's called the Nephrites. I can't remember, I don't know how to say that, but they're called a few different names, but more so right now they're popular for, the more rare versions are becoming more popular. So Pink Splash, Green Splash, Three Kings, Variegated, these are all the really popular ones that are gaining traction right now. So when they first were discovered, they were discovered in 1763, and they were included in the species Plantarum, and this described them at first not as a Syngonium or Nephrites or any of the names that we know them by now, but they thought that they were an, forgive me if I don't say this correctly, an aridum. But then they later changed this to thinking they were a Caladium xanthosoma cross, and then obviously as time went on, the names changed and where they placed them. So they are in the genus Arum, and then the subgenus or subfamily Aroidae, because they are aroids. And then as time goes on, in like the 1800s, they start to discover more types of Syngoniums. So in 1829, Scott, I'm not sure of his entire name, but a gentleman called Scott discovered 11 different types, and only one of those types did he rename as the Syngonium aridum, and the rest remained Syngonium podophyllum. So podophyllums are the more common ones that we see right now. Then in the 1860s, they discovered 20 taxa. I'm going to just list some off. I have my notes here so that I can remember the names because they're wild. And some of these I know a lot of us will know because they're ones that if you're collecting or even if you're just kind of familiar with them. So the first one was the Enum, the Hoffmanni, the Winlandi. I will try to put a picture up for each one of these. The Salvadorens, Podophyllum neglectum, the Augustatum, and then that's just a handful of the ones that of those 20 taxa. So, and a lot of those you'll probably recognize as I was reading them off. So they kind of change as they discover more and more. So then in 1920, a couple of other people, Crans and Angler and Crans, I'm not sure how to say their names, but they discovered two more, and that is the Hostophyllum and the Macrophyllum, and those were then added to the list of known Syngoniums. This color is not showing up on my eyes. That's the color I want. Okay, so moving on, we're in the 1969s, now the 1970s about, and a scientist called Bunting discovers the Triphyllum. So at this point, we've kind of gradually added more and more to the list. They've discovered more and more types, and so that's kind of where it ends up until like now. I think there's 30 different types of Syngonium that I found. So, and there may be more or less than that, but that's about where they're at. So we're going to kind of move on to how they grow in the wild. I've learned that they are actually invasive. So Florida, Hawaii, South Africa, Singapore, West Indies, America, Samoa, Niue, I'm not sure how to say that. They are considered invasive. They are an invasive species. Australia considers them a weed, which I did not know. It's kind of interesting to think that in a lot of places we are collecting what is considered a weed to other people, so I thought that was kind of cool. It makes sense why they are considered invasive, because when we think about them in our homes, they do grow fast, and they do take up a lot of space very quickly, depending on if you let them climb or hang. If you've had them for a long time, you know that they sprout a lot of shoots from the bottom, and this is what makes them an invasive species in a lot of places, because especially places where they're not native, because they will start to grow and they will climb up trees, they will climb up buildings, they will climb, I didn't realize they also grow in like drainage ditches in some places, and because they grow so fast and they vine everywhere, they will like choke out other native species in these areas, which then causes issues obviously for the plants that already exist there. I'm not sure of like what measures they take to control them as an invasive species, so I'm sure that they like cut them out. I'm sure that they use like weed killers and stuff. I'm not entirely sure of that process, but just something interesting to think about. I'm sure that this is not like the rare and kind of unique plants that we're collecting. This is more of the podophyllums, the common ones, that are kind of everywhere. I would say like the cheaper Syngoniums. However, with there being 30 species of Syngoniums or about, right, they are native to several different areas. So this would be to the Caribbean, Mexico, and Central America, those tropical places. Also tropical South America. So that's where they're native to. From what I could find, they grow similar to monsteras. So if you watched my monstera video, you'll know that monsteras will obviously grow on the forest floor, which is what makes them so versatile light-wise. And they grow to the top of the canopy to get more light. So Syngoniums are similar in the way that when they are first growing as seedlings, they start out on the forest floor. They're kind of weak and kind of wobbly. When I hear that, it makes me think about like the monstera seedlings I've started, where they don't have aerial roots or really a stable stem just yet to kind of keep themselves upright, which causes them to kind of fall over and vine on the ground at first. And then as they kind of vine and grow on the ground, they will eventually reach like trees, buildings, that kind of stuff to climb up. So during this phase, when they're kind of in their crawling phase, they produce leaves that may not have as much, excuse me, hold on, let me get this done. So as they climb and they are in that phase, they're producing small leaves that don't have much color. They haven't quite gotten a lot of shape yet either. When they reach whatever they're going to climb, this is when they start to get like their intermediate leaves. So the leaves that we kind of more so recognize in our homes on our plants. And there it is. These leaves are the more arrow shape. They start to kind of split off at the top. They get the point at the bottom. Their color might start to show a little bit more. So on that one that I showed you, the pink one, you can kind of see that the younger leaves might not have as much pink on them as the ones that have matured. So that's pretty common on a lot of plants actually. And this looks crazy. And then as they climb, right, so at this point in their life also, they are not getting a lot of sunlight, they're getting the water they need, but they're trying to reach that sunlight at the top of the canopy, just like a monstera would or other climbing vines that grow in these types of situations. And what that means is that it's going to start needing to move upward. And as it does so, its leaves change shape a little bit. So it goes from these arrowhead solid leaves. They don't get fenestrations, but they start to split off. And I couldn't find exactly, but the fact that the article I was reading said that they observed them growing like monsteras, I would think that them splitting off into compound leaves allows the sunlight to go through the leaf and reach the base of the vine. So if you watch that video about monsteras, you'll know that monsteras will, that is messed up. Monsteras will grow and create fenestration so that the leaves at the top are not taking all the water and the light from the leaves and the stem and the base of the plant, because the base of the plant obviously is what needs water the most. And the Syngoniums, as they climb, their leaves do get bigger and bigger, and though not as big as a monstera's, they still grow big enough that I imagine that they would begin to block out light and water from the vine. So if it did not adapt and create compound leaves or some way for the water and light to go through it, the plant would eventually die. So that's just a thought of how they, just a thought of why they grow the way they do and how they grow. Pretty much sums up the history and like how they grow in the wild. So let's go on to care. So I'm gonna try to hurry because the care part is pretty brief. So Syngoniums are pretty easy. They're considered fairly easy. Good for beginners if you are not an experienced plant person. And that's because they're pretty resilient. So they're kind of like a pothos where they just keep growing and growing and growing, and I imagine that's also why they're considered invasive. So when you're taking care of them, let's start with light. So I think it's important to understand where they come from so that you can understand what care they take. So considering that they start their lives on the bottom of the canopy, on the floor, on the ground, where they're not getting a whole lot of light, and they're growing towards the canopy to get that light at the top, they're still not going to be indirect sunlight pretty much at all in their entire life. Which means that in our houses, you wouldn't want to put them in direct light because they're not designed for that. They don't, in the wild, they do not grow like that. So you're going to want to put them in indirect or bright indirect light. That's why they're kind of good for beginners or people that live maybe in like an apartment or somewhere that doesn't have a whole lot of light, because you can kind of put them wherever you want as long as they're not getting no light, because no plant can grow in no light. But also you can put them in bright indirect light, you know. You can kind of put them wherever you want. You can put them in low light, in bright indirect, as long as you're not putting them in no light at all or indirect light. I have mine in a lot of different places. I have some that are over here behind me that kind of get this indirect light. I have some over there that's on like the wall, like away from the window. I have some kind of by windows, so they're very versatile. Now, water-wise, let's move on to water. When you're watering your Syngonium, hold on. Okay, when we're talking about watering, it's not gonna want a lot of water. It's gonna want to run through, have a little bit of water, but not sit in it. So when you're watering your Syngonium, one, you do not want to water on a schedule. Okay, watering on a schedule is not good for anybody. I will tell you from experience, watering on a schedule will cause root rot. It'll cause all kinds of issues. For some plants, it may mean that they dry out too much and it makes them ill. For some plants, it means that they get too much. So it's just best to water when the plant needs it. And Syngoniums need it when they're almost dry. If you let them dry out, it can damage the roots But if you give them too much water, it can cause root rot, and that's an even bigger issue. So I like to let mine water out until about the first inch or two of the soil is dry. This kind of allows for the roots to soak up the water that they need, but not sit in it, but also not become so dry that it wilts. I don't water. I water with filtered water every so often, just to kind of wash through any buildup of minerals in the soil that there might be. But these plants are not sensitive, which means that you can probably just use your regular tap water unless there's something wrong with your tap water, of course. If you want to water with filtered water, they'll do just fine. If you don't, they'll do just fine. So, watering Syngoniums is pretty easy. If we're talking about soil, the plant is growing up the tree and it's living on the forest floor. So it's not going to get all of the water from the rain or whatever moisture it's getting its moisture from. Because other plants are going to be absorbing it, they're going to be catching it as it's coming down, which means that the Syngoniums, they like water. They live in a humid environment. They live in a place that gets a lot of moisture, but they're not getting all of that moisture. So when you're picking a soil, you want to pick something that's not going to retain a lot of moisture against the roots. You can find aeroid mixes on Etsy, or you can make your own. So it's pretty easy. It just kind of depends on if you have time or if you want to. But typically you want bark and perlite or pumice, whatever you decide you want to put in it. Something to keep it from condensing. You want like charcoal, maybe some worm castings to give it that rich nutritional value. You'll want to choose something that you want to put like some peat moss in it, and then you'll want to choose a good soil to kind of mix it all together in. So I like I think it's Fox Farms, the Ocean Forest mix, because it's already got some of that stuff in it. It's already got some of the worm castings. It's already got some like fish emulsion in it, and my plants just do really good on that. I'll usually take some of that and I'll mix it with, if I don't use it by itself, because it does drain really good on its own, but it also is a good base if you want to add sand, or if you want to add the pumice, or if you want to add more fertilizer to it, whatever you want. So that's kind of what I do and what I choose, but that's up to you, however you would want to mix your own soil, or if you want to buy it. If you're going to buy something and not mix it at all, I suggest the Fox Farms. So we've got soil, we've got water, we've got sunlight, and those are kind of the basics. But you'll also need to consider the other care that it needs. And it doesn't need the rest of this stuff, but it will help it to grow and stay healthy. So you'll want to keep it in a somewhat humid environment, because if it's growing in the forest, it's going to have a high humidity content, 60-50%. And this will keep the leaves from getting kind of crispy. It'll keep it growing healthy. It'll help the leaves unfurl the way they need to, but it's not a necessity. It'll grow without those conditions. The other thing is toxicity. So if you have pets that eat your plants, you'll either want to hang your Syngonium so they can't get to it, or you may want to consider getting a different plant, because Syngoniums are toxic, and they create, when your animal ingests them, it creates like a crystallization in their throat, which can cause them to become seriously ill and even cause death. And that goes for like children and other people too. You do not want to ingest this plant, because it will cause you to be ill and potentially die. So, which sounds scary, but that's only if you ingest it. I've had mine for a long time. My mom's had hers for a long time. Just don't eat it. The other thing we need to talk about is fertilization. So if you're fertilizing these, I've been talking about how I use just like a Miracle-Gro mix. But I started researching a little bit more on the fertilizers I was using. And though Miracle-Gro is great for like outdoor plants where the nutrients are kind of washing through the soil, it's fine, but in house plants it can cause root burn. So I've kind of switched over. I'm trying some different things. Ideally for your tropical plants that are creating large foliage, you want something that's going to be like a 3:1:2 ratio. And this is a lot smaller of a ratio than what I was using. This will just give it the right amount of nutritional value. It'll give it what it needs to grow nice, beautiful, lush leaves. When repotting, this is I think the last thing, and I'm not done, so I may have to finish off camera. But when you're repotting them, they like to be root bound for quite a while. You can leave them in the same pot for a long time before considering a repot. You'll want to check the roots and see if the roots are if there's nowhere else for the roots to go. That's kind of what you want to look for. If there's still some room in there, you can leave them. When you repot, you'll want to use new soil to prevent like bacteria or anything else from spreading. And you'll want to put it in a pot that is like 1 or 2 inches bigger. You don't want to go too big because it will cause more room for error, basically. If you use a pot that's too big, it may cause your plant to store too much moisture and cause root rot, and you don't want that. So I stick to about 1 inch, maybe a couple inches bigger than what it is in at the moment. And then when you repot, I don't really like to disturb the roots too much. It depends on the plant, but most of the time I will just, if I see a root that's not doing well or something like that, I'll kind of trim it back, or I will untangle any that are like really, really tangled up that I know won't grow out into the soil like it should. But other than that, I don't mess with the roots. I repot it and I leave it. So that's kind of all the general care for Syngoniums and the history. And I am almost done, so let me finish this and I will be back. Okay, I'm finally done. I really need to find more information when I do these. It's kind of hard though, because like I can find stuff about certain things, but I'm gonna have to dive deeper, I think. But I am definitely happy with the amount of information I found on this video, even though I didn't finish my makeup with you guys. I'll leave it on there so you guys can see what I did, but I think I'm gonna have to tap into some like libraries and that kind of stuff to find more information, because a lot of it is either just like care tips or like little tidbits here and there. So, but I do want to continue this. I think it's kind of fun to do. I hope that you guys enjoy it too, and I appreciate you guys stopping by today and hanging out with me. I hope that you like the eye look. I like how this turned out a lot better than my last one. So anyway, if you like this video, give it a like and subscribe, and come visit me again. I enjoy hanging out with you. Go ahead and also, if you enjoyed this video and you feel like you want to follow me on my other social media accounts, feel free to. I have an account on Instagram at maddplants, madd.plants, and that's kind of more my personal one. It shows my collection, care tips, that kind of stuff. And then my shop Instagram is diariesoffarmhouse.shop, where I post about my products. I update you on sales, giveaways, anything new that's coming up. And if that's something you're interested in, you can go ahead and also go to our website, www.diariesoffarmhouse.com, where you can sign up for the newsletter. You'll know what we're bringing to each farmer's market. You'll get updates on anything new with our products, or our website, or our Instagram, or videos, blogs, any of that. So go ahead and give us a follow there as well. And I very much appreciate you guys stopping by. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you. Bye.